decided, because we always go out and I would always take nice pictures on the wine farms. So why should I then hide behind the name and not show my face? Then I started, then I changed my Instagram name to Justin Uncorked, because that essentially gives people a more personal touch to who I am. And the reason why I chose Uncorked as part of my name is, as you uncork a bottle of wine, you tell a story. And this is basically just me telling my story virtually on Instagram.
Oh, that's amazing. Have a friend started calling you Justin Uncorked now?
Uh, a lot of them, yes.
So you seem to be you seem to, in the beginning, you used to focus on blogging, but you've recently moved away a bit more, and it looks like to me like you're focusing more on Instagram and social media. Is this by design?
It is, yeah. I think people no longer rely on newspapers and magazines, and Instagram. I have the biggest following on Instagram among all my other platforms as Twitter and my Facebook page. So I think I gravitate just more towards Instagram at this point in time, because yeah, it just works for me.
Okay, excellent. And how important do you think social media is going to become in the future for the wine industry?
Well, I think it is already important now. I think it is now the time that, the wine industry can use this platform to put their wines out there and to promote online purchases of the wines, because like we said earlier on, the ban is now lifted, so we can now try and push online sales even more, um, and it makes it so much easier for us all, because we don't have to go stand in queues and put ourselves at risk to get this virus. So I don't think that it is important in the future, but now is actually the time for the wine industry to focus more on, pushing online sales and putting themselves out there.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think this is going to be a growing trend, and well, it's been a growing trend for a long time, but it's now been speeded up, right, with what's happened in the industry. So
Yes.
you are becoming quickly becoming an influencer in the industry, and with the following you're getting on Instagram, you must be noticed by wine producers and people contacting you to asking you to maybe do things and stuff like that. So what does a wine producer do,
Yes.
or a wine's business, if they want to see you there as an influencer? Because it looks to me like you're not only doing, just to backtrack a little bit, you're not just interested in wine, you're also interested more in lifestyle, in traveling, and also even restaurants and stuff like that. Am I right?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So if a business is out there and they are trying to get your attention, how did they, get you to actually write something for them or about them? What did they need to do?
So a lot of businesses use PR companies. So these PR companies would then scout for influencers or bloggers within the portfolio, for instance, wine. And the PR companies would then reach out to us and send us media jobs, and we then take it from there. So we would take pictures and tell the audience about how we enjoy the wines or food or whatever we get sent. So I think a lot of the wine farms or wine companies use PR companies to reach out to influencers and bloggers.
Okay. So that would be the avenue to really, if somebody's sitting there as a smaller producer or with a small restaurant and is thinking, yes, I'm seeing this guy Justin on Instagram, maybe if he post something about my restaurant or get more sales, they can just DM you right on your Instagram page. So am I
Yes,
right if I
yeah,
say that?
yes, you are. So it can be a DM or it can be an email, any form of communication.
I quickly want to share something exciting. I have heard via the grapevine that the Fishwives Club will be launching a new lifestyle club soon. If you have not heard of the Fishwives Club yet, just know that you are probably missing out on the sexiest wine label out there. To stay in the loop, please quickly go and follow them on Instagram. The Instagram handle is at the Fishwives Club Lifestyle. Let me repeat that. At the Fishwives Club lifestyle. Now, on with the show.
So, what is your long-term vision for as an influencer? You know, what is your income? What would you like to do, Justin? Where would you like to take this?
I think when I started this blogging thing, my goal was to, see more or get more young people involved in drinking wines, and realize that wine is not just to get wasted, if I can call it that, but you can pair wine with food, with different types of food, and so I think essentially my focus would be to just reach out to more young people, the people that needs more education on wine, but not just education, just to connect with people and tell a story to them, and also just to make people aware that wine is not expensive, and going out to wine farms, you literally just need like $200 to have a decent wine tasting and just enjoy the views of the wine farms. I mean, we in Stellenbosch and Paul, we have such beautiful wine farms. So that is ultimately my goal, just to reach out to more young people to get more involved in the enjoyment of wine.
So, if you look at your social media following, what would you say would be the the demographics, the age groups, and the split between male and female, that type of thing?
According to the demographics, I think more male follow me. I think it could be over 60%, and then the age is between 32 and 40. So it's more or less in my age group where people would and it's actually a good thing that more males follow me in this case, because it's nice to know that there are young guys that also enjoy wine.
That's true, and it's interesting that it's a growing group. So if you look at the way they are interested in wine, like the traditional, I think people older than 50 are more interested in the older type things, right? Where does the wine come from? The history of the farm, the winemaker stories. So your age group, what are their interests? What are they looking for? Are they more interested in price? Are they interested in experience? What do they like?
So I think people in my age group are more into the experience, going out to wine farms and have a bottle of wine with their friends. But the price also plays a role in wine, in them purchasing wines. So it's a bit of both, I would say, but more so enjoying the wine and the experience of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So something else that's I'm just thinking of that's popped up lately. I've seen that there's a few brands coming up with wine in a can. I don't know if you've seen this. What do you think of this idea?
I think it's actually a brilliant idea because you can literally just have your wine in your hand. Personally, I haven't really had wine in a can. I did try MCC in a can, which was great. I really loved it. I think it was JC LaRue. But I think it's technology evolves and the world is changing every day. So it's important to try out new things and see how people feel about it. I mean, you can have, as a beer, you can have or a cool drink, you can have your wine as well.
Yeah, that's
in a
nice.
can.
And also, I think the big thing is, I was thinking specifically like wine bars and stuff. One of the biggest problems are spillage, right? They open a bottle of wine, and then maybe somebody buys somebody buys a glass, they have to open a whole bottle. Whereas if
Absolutely.
that's a nice convenient size, a 250 ml can actually work quite well.
Absolutely, yes.
So just in the coronavirus, I mean, it's locked us all up. We have to change our business models. Have you thought about this? What are your ideas? And even for producers, what do what would new ideas that you that you thought of while sitting there in lockdown?
I haven't really given it a lot of thought, but what I would say now at this point, it is to utilize social media, utilize the platforms such as Instagram to push for awareness of the different brands, and just make people aware that there is discounts when purchasing wines for this period of time, or just push your online sales.
Yeah, I think that is right. Um, uh, uh, so, from your wine journey, what would you say is the most important thing that you've personally learned?
Um, I think number one is that not all rosés are sweet. I always had this perception that a rosé wine is a sweet wine, and I'm not a sweet wine drinker. That is number one. Number two is that, not all your cheaper wines that you see on the shelves in shops are of lesser quality. Because if you are an expensive drinker, you would gravitate towards an expensive bottle because you think it's of better quality, but it's not always the case. Yeah, and that wine is just nice to enjoy, and you can do so much with wine.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, so Justin, I ask everyone this question is your favorite wine quote. Do you have your own one, or is there one that's your favorite?
I don't have my own one, but I always see on Twitter when someone opens a bottle of wine at 10 in the morning, or at 9 or at 1, someone would say, it is 5 o'clock somewhere in the world. So there's never a wrong time for you to open a bottle of wine or to enjoy a glass.
That's funny because people always say, the Boeing's over, but these days you would never be drinking because there's no flights.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, that's a good one. And Justin, if people want to get hold of you and want to connect with Justin, or how do they get hold of you? What's the best places?
Best places, Instagram, so it will be just at Justin_uncorked. I'm also on Twitter, same handle, Justin Uncorked, and Facebook page, same name, and then my website. But Instagram, it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
Instagram's the thing. So just as we've been hammering on about Instagram, and I can see you focusing on it. Do you believe that that people you feel that people are moving away from Facebook a lot to Instagram, and that Instagram is going to become the powerhouse driving social media in the future?
Yes, I think so. And personally, myself, if I look at all my Facebook memories that pops up every day, I'm thinking, yo, I posted a lot on Facebook and the things that I said, but I'm definitely using Instagram more. I think that is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning. You go on Instagram and you check people's pictures and you like people's pictures. So I think Instagram is just growing and growing and growing. I don't know if everyone is moving away from Facebook, but personally, I definitely did. I don't post as much on Facebook anymore as I did in the past.
Oh, that's interesting. Justin, it's been very interesting talking to you, and thank you for spending the time. I know everyone's busy, and good luck with everything. And are you going to stand in line at the local Tops or wherever on the 1st of June?
It all depends. I think I'll for now I will just order something online and see how it goes. Let everyone just get their stock first.
Okay, Justin, thank you. I appreciate the time you've spent, and it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Will.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description.
Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we'll be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, winelands businesses, and other role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for our latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify.
Good day, everybody, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today I'm talking to Arco Laarman from Laarman Wines. Welcome to About the Winelands, Arco.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me on your talk.
No, thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. I'd really love to know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in winemaking and in the wine industry?
Yeah, look, funny enough, I'm not actually not from the Cape. There are a couple other winemakers that are not Capies, but I was born up in Joburg, in Roodepoort, and my brother was a Navy diver. We used to come on holiday a lot down to the Cape as a family when we used this flat. And towards the end of our school holidays, obviously, it's family outings. You followed the parents around. We ended up going to the winelands for a day, and I was at that time probably like 8 or 9. Walked into a cellar, and it must have been just before or after harvest. You can get a typical cellar smell. I'll never forget that. And I looked at this and never knew of it as a career choice. Even more so when I went back to school up in Joburg, and they didn't even know what it was. They thought winemakers were just like mechanics that work in the background. And yeah, I started in high school and was already reading the wine magazine. I remember the first one that came out was Peter Ferreira on the front cover. And yeah, my mom has always been very free to let us follow our own paths. And what happened is the platter was still very thin in 95, and there wasn't emails yet. So we set up a letter and sent out faxes to potential farms that I just sort of earmarked in the platter, and came up to Kaapstad, the Statler family. And I was obviously just out of matric, 19, and they took me on more. It was actually Ingvild, Dani's wife, that sort of pushed me more as help for Dani. Dani Senior had never had anyone before, and I then took a job there more as eyes for people stealing wine out the cellar. But it was then I actually ended up staying 3 years with them and became part of the family. And really, I'm very close to Dani Jr. We sort of brothers from another mother type thing, because he was in standard 7 or 8 when I met him. And when he realized that as a winemaking family, he took it for granted almost that you're born in this industry, but then he saw the passion that I had for not having that, call it generational right to take over a farm. And it really drove to him that he understood that he had a great opportunity within his family to start, and that's where he is, and he's doing a great job running the family business there now. Spent 3 years with them, and then worked for a mobile bottling company. Was very interesting. Got to meet a lot of different farms that you would not have necessarily have known from. That's how I met David from Glencarlo. They didn't have a bottling line at that time, and he sort of offered me a job after seeing how I worked on the line and that. And I was a little wary. I said no the first time, and then did a bottling again with him, and he sort of pressed again, and it's like, oh, and I said, okay, well, let's go for it. So then I actually, before starting at Glencarlo, which was middle of 99, I then went to America to Hess Collection, which was part of the Glencarlo group in those early years, and did a harvest there. And we started at Glencarlo in 2000, and then did vintages in Australia, France, Germany, and Austria over the couple of years. And then Glencarlo started getting quite large, and David Finnison, the whole farm was sold in the early the the mid 2000s, and then David left in 2009, and I took over as head winemaker and continued there until 2016. The reason I left Glencarlo was I'd been there 17 years. It was like almost part of the furniture. And I decided if I don't do it now, I'll regret it. So I decided to start my own company, which was when I started Lahman Wines. First vintage was 2017. So I finished at Glencarlo end of 2016, and Lahman Wines is still, it's only year 3 now. But that's where I am. So I buy wines from different regions. I'd only worked with Paarl grapes for so many years that it was not time to say, well, let's try and do Chardonnay from a cooler climate. There's a couple of independents that are multi-regional, which is also interesting, and it gives you a bit of diversification of working with a specific variety in a different area.
Wow, this is interesting. So I just want to know, Arco, you knew from a young age that you're going to be in the wine industry. At what age did you start drinking wine?
It's funny. My parents were not big wine drinkers. My heritage is Dutch. Arco is obviously an unusual name. It's sort of a mix from Anco and Arno. Then Lahman, there's not many Lahmans in the country, but the interest I had actually sort of made interest in my parents, so that they moved to Cosmos in Hartbeespoort. They've got a beautiful guest house there. They actually literally put a cellar into the mountain for the guests, but for myself to play a bit. And yeah, I didn't actually drink a lot of wines until I started at Kaapstad. I would more manage this sort of cellar. So I would just see certain wines ahead, and then let's keep that, and let's see if that's going to stay. And my dad also, I into the Chateau Libertas box competition, not box, I mean like a wooden box, not bag in the box, but it was a wine magazine competition. I had to use my dad's details because it was still underage. And then he got this letter that we were one of the 50 guys to win this box. And it's actually a beautiful Chateau Libertas vintage, when it still had those gold Superior stickers from 1982, 3, 4, 5, 6 vintages of 6 bottles. My dad always threw it away because he thought it was a promotion, but then he actually saw that we won this thing. And it was me as a minor that's now trying to win competitions out of the wine magazine.
Well, that's fantastic. So tell us a bit, how you started Lahman Wines, the wines you are making, and also, your winemaking philosophy.
Look, a lot of it comes from my philosophy in wine is also more driven towards the varieties that I work with. To be fair, my company is only 3 years old now. There are certain wines and projects still up and coming, but obviously having spent 17 years at Glencarlo, Chardonnay became part of my blood. It's obviously one of the strongest products for Glencarlo. And so Chardonnay is for me very important in my business. And I started, like I said, in the beginning of 2017. I had my sort of entry level, I've got 2 ranges. So I've got my entry level or mid range called Cluster Series, which was a Chardonnay from Pekingese Kloof. Well, the first year was actually from Elgin, and then the 17 is from Pekingese Kloof. And a Cab, which the initial vintage was Paarl, and now it's Stellenbosch. And then my second range is the Focal Point wines. And those are very more site specific as well, with a Chardonnay from a region called Vermaaklikheid. I'm sure you've heard of it. There near Riversdale on the Duivenhoeks River. Mm-hmm. And then a Cinsault, which I did in 2017, which was Stellenbosch. In 2018 is Achterperl, beautiful bush vine stuff. And then an old wine, Shannon, from a block in Paarl, as old as me. I was born in 1977, so it's a 43-year-old vineyard. And my philosophy is, look, keep things simple. It's interesting. I always dealt with, you get all the smokers coming to sell you additives and barrels and staves and this and that. And I believe that wine is a natural product. If you have good grapes, you can bring all the flavors you need direct from the vineyard by not having to add anything that you would maybe see in a cooperative situation. I do use cultivated yeast with my Chardonnay, because Chardonnay is a neutral variety. So I do experiment with different yeast strains. But otherwise, a lot of my stuff is also natural fermentation. But people must forget, people talk about natural wines, yeast is natural. So whether it's cultivated by Anchor, as long as it's not a GMO, it is the same thing as a natural yeast, but it's just been gone through a process where it is more active than natural ones. But there's definitely differences in that, and I'd like to get diversity in my Chardonnay to get different flavor components out of it from the yeast and from the barrels.
Very interesting. You mentioned that you're looking at wines from different areas, and specifically wines that are grapes that come from a specific place. Can you explain to us what Cape Sites is and how that works?
It's called Cape Site Specific. It's a group that we started, me and probably about eight producers at the time. It was more about sharing a standard Cape wine, but as we know, wine is sold by stories and philosophies and that. And what we put together is a group that believe in wines with a sense of place. So to be part of this group, your wines have to qualify for their origins. So you can't have wines from Western Cape or blended between Paarl and Stellenbosch. The minimum criteria is that it must be at least wine of origin Stellenbosch, but the best thing is to go from there to Ward to as close as you can to single vineyard. So I have a wine that comes from a single vineyard, it's not been certified yet for the 2020 vintage. It's a single vineyard, which is that old vine Shannon I was talking about. So the more specific you get and the more driven to the site is the story. So we're now on our 4th year together. Very different under the circumstances with COVID. We're all working from home and talking to each other. It's funny, the winemakers are always very social people, and I actually went out yesterday to go and do something, but we don't see each other as much as we did in the past. But yeah, we're all like-minded and like to have wines with a sense of place. That's the most important message that we're trying to push through into the market.
So Cape Sites, is that official? Is that an organization with a brand? Is it branded, certified? Is it a non-profit? How does it work?
It's called Cape Site Specific, and it's set up as a company, as an organization, and we all of us pay a fee to be part of it. And if we want to do an event, then it's like pay as you go, in whether you want to do it or not. And look, the idea for us is actually sort of to have a good pool of money from all of us together, and then to invite people from overseas and sort of work together with Warsaw to create content. Like the Swartland has done really, really well. Like, you need to create content in the industry to be able to tell your stories and that. So that's how it's been driven. It's not about making money. It's just about making it operate under our membership fees and what we're willing to take part in as a member.
So are the wines labeled in some way so that you can see it? How does the consumer know this comes, or is it how does that work at the moment?
We haven't gotten to that stage yet where we have a seal or something. It's not like the Old Vines group yet. But you bring up a good point. We don't have anything specifically on our labels yet that mention that. It's more about the events that we do together. But yeah, that is something we should look at, maybe, is to add something onto the bottle that can at least bring you to the website to understand our philosophies, and that's similar to the wine seal, the certification seal. Not everybody, we in the industry know what it stands for, but even the well-known wine, a wine drinker with knowledge doesn't fully understand what even the seals that we have on the labels actually represent. But that's all about getting the message out there, and that's yeah.
It's like you say, it's creating content and raising awareness. It's like anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
So, okay, your wines, where are you selling? Are you selling in the local market only? Are you exporting? How do you work?
I think we all know that the South African market is pretty flooded. I think if you think now, I think the latest number here is what, 6,000 different wines available under different brands and that type of thing. So my focus was really to drive the international market side. So my wines are local and international, but I'm really pushing on the export side. I export to Belgium, Mauritius, UK, trying to get into Holland, America I'm still working on. But yeah, export is important, but then local as well. But obviously being a small independent producer, I'm not going to be selling at the macros and doing pallet deals and that type of thing. So it's more your independent. So the well-known guys like Wine Menu up in Joburg, all the wine concept stores down here, 1 or 2 liquor cities, the well-known one in Claremont, Liquor City, he's got best range of wines, largest range of wines and gins and all sorts of things. So he's always keen to take on new wines. And then obviously direct consumers, where we and any winery makes the best margins is with, if you have a cellar door or do events that you drive your direct sales, which is something I'm very much focusing on, which I think we all are now in this COVID thing, is that online wine sales have increased dramatically, and online wine shops, just trying to push those sales that you're not getting in the restaurants anymore, or the reduction of availability in the liquor stores, and only having a 5-day, no, 4 days. You can only buy alcohol 4 days of the week. So yeah, it's, I don't know, for the bigger guys to work out budgets and that this year, I'm glad I know I've got only a certain amount of wine to sell, but for the big boys, it's a bit scary.
Yeah, you don't want to sit with a cellar full of wine when you get your next harvesting, right?
No, exactly. Yeah.
I think what's interesting to me is that you mentioned direct to consumer, which you're right. It's growing a lot, but also you said events. So do you do pop-up tastings?
Yeah, I actually had just started that just before the lockdown. I did my first one at the winery where I buy the Chenin from. Then my idea was to do it at certain, either to use a restaurant or certain of the guys, like the Sommelier Association in Stellenbosch, or a wine bar somewhere that uses my wines and that. So that was the idea, is once a month to do like a pop-up tasting. But that's all gone at the moment. So we don't know when we can all have a glass of wine together with a meal, or get together to do a tasting. So yeah, that is the way. I haven't been doing a lot of online Zoom meeting tastings, that type of thing. It's very difficult to do that as well. You can't drop everybody a bottle of wine. We're at Cape are specifically trying to figure out, well, let's take a 750 ml bottle and put it into 50 ml little bottles and send it out, and you do a group tasting with someone. But it's logistics and timings and all of that. And to be fair, I think people being a bit overrun with some of these things maybe. So, but yeah, it's important to get to the direct consumer.
So besides that, I see on your website you also offer winemaking consultancy service. I was wondering about that, and also, what other services do you offer?
Yeah, there's look, because I work for myself. I'm not as hectic as when I was working at Glencola. When I left there, I think we were bottling 650,000 bottles, which keeps one very, very busy. With myself, I utilize cellar space near me here in Paarl, so that keeps me busy maybe 2-3 days of the week. Obviously, wintertime is more quiet time for winemakers. You've got everything to barrel and everything self-fed up and everything safe. So I offer, any consultancy for small guys that don't have the budget for, say, only producing 5 or 10 tons for a small guest house winery or whatever. So I can do little parcels for them if they have their own vineyards. And then obviously anything from packaging for other people that are looking for a winemaker that can do everything from finding bulk wines, doing bottling for them, and so on. It hasn't been such an active part of my business, but there's sort of 2-3 people that I have as a concern that I do this for now, which is great. It sort of just puts a little bit more into the bank account without having to sell wine.
Interesting. So you've mentioned the coronavirus and the lockdown a bit, and I mean, it's forced all of us to actually rethink our business models. So do you have any changes or new ideas that came to mind while you were sitting there in lockdown?
Look, there's again, I'm really pushing on the export side. There's 1 or 2 new opportunities coming my way, which will really help, because obviously we for 2 months couldn't sell anything here locally, but like in the UK, there's online companies that have been selling throughout the lockdown, and it's been like Christmas for them for the last 3-4 months. So people not going out, but people ordering wine, and we weren't able to do that. So there is definitely a demand and a bit of a gap. Unfortunately, some people did lose the business due to those 2 months where they had potential listings with some of the larger Systembolaget in Sweden and whatever. But just really looking at again, like I said earlier, that is my model, is exporting and just making that grow strength from strength in this environment at the moment.
So interesting to me is, it's European summer now, all the whole Northern Hemisphere. And this is obviously a high consumption time. So what about logistics? If you get orders now, are you managing to get them out?
There's in general, there is a bit of a bottleneck at the harbour. But since the export allowance was lifted, that we can export again, I actually I sent some wine to Belgium, and it took the usual 3-week turnaround. It wasn't too bad. Obviously, if you want to still get into that rosé season for the UK, you want the stuff on the water now before their season stops. So I don't know. I don't do rosé yet. I'm looking at doing it possibly next year. But our timings have been out because specifically those 2 months where we were not allowed to export. Definitely certain products, not only wine, but if you think of some of the beers and sort of ciders and things like that, they've lost a huge chunk of business because you've now something that should have been there 2 months ago is 2 months behind. So that's not easy.
Yeah, by the time it gets there, it's winter.
Exactly.
So that is the issue. So okay,
Yeah.
I mean, you've had an interesting journey in the wine industry. What is the most important thing that you've learned so far from your wine journey?
Look, the thing is that there's a lot of competition. That's I did know that before I started my own business. Winemakers can make wine, and we all can make wine, or estates can make wine, but it's another thing to sell it. It's a big part of our industry is marketing and being out there. So that's really been. It's not I'd say a life lesson in the wine industry. It's definitely, I've known it as a learning curve that you're going to be marketing all the time. But I won't regret having gotten into the industry over 20, we on? My first vintage I did was in '96. So yeah, it's a long time. I've been in Paarl for 20 years. And me and my wife have now actually decided to move to a cooler area. And I think it's also more maybe part of my Chardonnay campus going on. We're going to be moving to Onrus, and I'll look at some area there to higher space and really look at cooler climate Chardonnay from Elgin or the Cape South Coast, getting a bit closer to Vermakelijkheid, so I don't have to drive as far to get the grapes. And yeah, we'll hire over there for a year and see if it works. Our daughter is not old enough to get into school. Actually, she's still young enough before she needs to start anything. And yeah, I know got good friends there. Hannes Storm, obviously the Finnersons from Creation, I know well. So if they can do it, I'm sure it's possible. So that's hopefully the next 20 years in my wine journey.
Well,
at that.
I just wanted to ask you that because, I mean, you're still young and your business is even younger. So what is your long-term vision? Where are you going to take Larman Wines? What is your plan?
Yeah, as profitable as possible. What I've actually done with my packaging is, if you look at the labels, it's very much driven on the names. So you got Focal Point Chardonnay, and the story is specific, and then the cluster series, which means cluster obviously means a bunch of grapes. So I need one berry can be perfect, but you need a whole cluster to fill a glass. Use my name to endorse my wine is in the next 20 years is that if I can push these wines, get the brands strong enough out there that they can actually be freestanding brands on their own, that I don't sell my name, but I can sell who's interested in increasing the size of it. Or I'd have to see if my daughter wants to get into wine, but she's only 3, so I'm not going to push her on whether she's going to be in my footsteps. But
it sounds like in your family, you have to start drinking at 7, right, to be a winemaker. To be a winemaker at 16.
No. So we'll see. But hopefully, yeah. Obviously, we all want to put food on our plates and have a comfortable life. And the wine industry can do that if you just keep your nose to the grindstone, create quality wines that people enjoy, and look at old vines as becoming quite a strong marketing part of South Africa, and maybe get more involved in that, looking at different regions. If you look at Chris Arlight, he lives in that area that I'm talking about, Onrus, but he's buying grapes from all the way up in Pekingese Kloof and all over. So he's also a bit more multi-regional. So that's the different side of being sort of the old 1980s landgoed or estate wines. But yeah, we'll see what happens in 20 years. We can have this conversation in 5 or 10 years from now again. It doesn't have to be that long, but hopefully I'm staying on a stronger foot, or we all are.
Yes, I really hope so. Can you give us your very own wine quote?
Yeah,
your favorite one.
I was struggling a little bit with that. My wife, I do tend to have a good sense of humor sometimes when get put in the spot, but obviously Chardonnay is a very big part of me, and there was that time when I was traveling in the US, or actually it's the US is part of the problem, is that they were making these heavy Chardonnays, over wooded, over full malolactic fermentation, too much butternage. They made these wines that were so planky and dry that you need like 3 glasses of water with a glass of wine. And there was a stage that I'm sure you know of called ABC, anything but Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to call is reduce the wood. It needs to be part of it, but create wines with a bit more finesse, even more so now working with this Vermakelijkheid stuff where it's on strong limestone soils, 8 kilometers as a crow flies to the sea, making Chardonnays with finesse and changing the ABC, anything but Chardonnay, to always buy Chardonnay.
There we go. I like that.
So that's what I'm going for.
That's your quote. Always
Yeah.
buy Chardonnay. I love it.
You buy, and you might actually still bring wine themselves. So look at Lahman wines within a day. You're not allowed to move it around after Thursday, but usually if one orders, and that's I would say with the lockdown rules, maybe a week. Otherwise, recommend them going to the likes of Wine Menu and one or two guys are there. But the best is Dry Dock Liquors as well. They also have my wines. You can still do a week's turnaround once you start moving out the country, that type of thing.
Okay, work with everything you're doing. And
hopefully, I was seeing some of my wine friends yesterday. We're saying we're only going to get together at a restaurant when they allow us to have a glass of wine again. I don't know who's going to go out to a steakhouse or something and sit and drink a Diet Coke or something. You need that glass of wine or a beer, that thing. So I'm hoping for the rest rule will be lifted quite soon as well.
or even worse, who goes to a wine estate and don't drink wine if you go out for lunch?
Yeah, yeah, shame. That's the thing is, even if I was at Glencalu 2 weeks ago, yeah, they're also saying that they probably won't open the restaurant until they have got full drink wines on the premises.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, eh?
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description. Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and other role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for our latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today I'm speaking to Fred Hart. Fred Hart is from Uncork, SA. Welcome, Fred, to About the Winelands.
Cheers. Well, thanks very much. Great to be here.
No, it's my pleasure. How are you coping with this whole locked-in scenario?
Well, it's rather interesting. We've just added a new family member to the house, so we're fairly busy and full at home. 2 kids and a newborn, and yeah, and managing thankfully to continue working in new space. So busy. Obviously, very daunting to know that we might be running out of wine. Although I think I might still be safe for a couple of years or so.
Oh, that might be. I mean, I just thought we have an impending disaster coming on, but I'm glad to hear that. So, talking about the wine, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and how you became involved with the wine industry.
Cool. Yes, well, and I'm born and bred Durban, which is kind of the antithesis, I suppose, of premium wine and all things fine. Born and bred Durban, can't surf to save my life. I can fall off a surfboard like you can't believe, but certainly not one you can stand on. Born and bred there, and I've came down to the Cape in 2012 from a point of view, but I've always been a really big wine lover. Brought up in a family that loves wine, and like really specifically some big Cabernet and big Bordeaux blends. So as far back as I can remember, it's been a really important part of family and celebration and lifestyle. Strange enough, I can actually still remember the day that my father, for the first time, said to me, "It's my chance to go with the wine steward or the sommelier and go pick a wine from the cellar myself." It's things like that which obviously drew me to this industry, that it forms such an integral part of special moments and family celebrations. And from there on, it's just been a love story, really.
So you've been in the wine industry a lot. I mean, your dad was in the wine industry as well, it sounds like. or in the restaurant
No,
industry?
so my father was actually he's a medical doctor, still is practicing in
Oh,
Durban, just passionately in love with wine. I
okay.
think that he's very much been brought up in that, in the old days it was still very much acceptable to have medical reps drop off a bottle of wine to say thank you for support and service. And so many of these wines actually came from gifts from these amazing people who used to work with my father. Yeah, so we just fell in love with the product, and I think the living nature of it made it just appealing and very romantic for us as a family to enjoy together.
Awesome. So Uncork SA, how did that start?
Uh, I always thought that I'd never be somebody to play around too much on social media, but what I realize is that I really enjoy all of this stuff. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy consuming and appreciating fine wine and learning about it. I think that really is the most important thing. But I found my taste and appetite for all things fine was working faster than my memory. So to be honest, when I opened Uncork SA for the very first time, the intent was to really store and keep a memory bank of all the products that I enjoyed. So it wouldn't be everything I tasted; it would be the things that I thought, one day I'm going to go back and pick this up in my cellar, and I'm going to, keep track of what I really enjoy. And from there, it kind of just grew fairly organically. To be honest, and very unexpectedly as well.
Well, how long ago did you start?
It was probably three and a half years ago.
Okay.
At that stage, I was working in the wine industry, so I had the pleasure of working with one of the largest liquor suppliers in South Africa for years. I say many years in context, 8 or 9 years. And it was really that space where I was able to, my passion for wine and spirits was able to develop further, become more than just a sideline interest, but become something that was keenly aware of. And I wanted, probably say 2018, the beginning of 2018, I started it. And within 2 or 3 months, it started clocking up a reasonable following. And I don't think I really kept track of how many people were engaging and how many people were talking or how many people were following. It was never really that exciting for me, but it felt like other people became interested in that. And obviously it's just snowballed, and the amount of time I invested in there just really started picking up as well.
So I'm interested, right? So this is now your full-time profession. It's not just a side hobby.
No, so it is still very much a side hobby. I have
Okay.
left the liquor industry directly. I now work in the data science world, in customer data science.
Oh,
So I've left directly that space. Although what I've realized is there's still a keen interest. It has always really revolved around people. So even what I'm doing now is still the same token. What has happened is since leaving the liquor industry, I've been able to really stretch out my wings a little bit further and uncork, and start digging deeper into the area that I'm passionate about. But that being said, it's still a sideline. What it means, I suppose, for Uncork in general is that it still remains a really 100% authentic recommendation site.
well,
I
well,
have been really fortunate to have something else that drives my income, which means that I don't, it's never really about charging or making money. It's the purpose of Uncork has never been a financial gain. It's really
okay.
just about indulging my own curiosity for things that are luxury.
So Uncork itself, I mean, I know you've got quite a big social media following, but is it your blog is basically your real passion, right? Is that what I understand it correctly? Is that, I mean, what other places do you have, where you actually do reviews and stuff like that besides your blog? Or is your blog the main thing?
Yeah, so and really on Instagram is probably the primary presence holder of Uncork. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose it was really designed that way. Should go, and actually as I was guided by other people who follow and talk to me about it, there was some visual appeal in what was being presented on Cork, and more importantly, it helped to kind of declutter and kind of remove some stigma and overcomplication in the wine industry. A great visual, a quick description of wine, and a personal view on rating. People seem to respond to very well. So I tried a few different avenues in the beginning. I tried to play a bit more on Facebook for a while, and I toyed around on Twitter. And whilst there's presence on both, what I'm finding is, I don't get to decide myself where Uncork goes. There's a community that choose
Yeah.
where it goes to by how they engage with the content, and the more they like and talk and want to explore different areas, the easier it is for me to understand. And I love the fact that it is very much a community. And I've almost, love the idea that social media is not it's not just about sitting behind a screen and being a separate person. There's a very social element attached to it, and people sometimes forget that.
Yeah, social media gets a bad rap because people don't understand it, but it's just a platform for distributing content, whether you're phoning people or doing it on social media or talking to people over a glass of wine. It's exactly the same thing. It's engagement, right? And if you're engaging, your platform works. And like you said, the platform is decided by where people want to engage. And
Absolutely.
we're finding in our business that, although I think most of your big wine estates and stuff, their Facebook presence are still bigger than the Instagram presence. That's changing, and worldwide, your social media presence is slowly moving over. Actually, not slowly; it's fast moving away from Facebook to Instagram. And
Yeah.
I think
So
that's the trend.
it was one of the areas that I did consider. I mean, thankfully, having some kind of background in the industry and having a bit more statistical support in what I do now, there's a very clear understanding of what is coming, and I believe that Instagram was a future fit choice. Whilst it didn't start that way, I think hindsight is 2020. I'll pat myself on the back and say it was a well-grounded decision, although it was probably a fluke chance, to be honest. I do find that the platform itself is the right space for me to be playing in, as like I say, specifically around removing some complication. The other areas I maintain. So there is still Facebook presence, there's still a Twitter presence, and it's there, but it never really is something that would be a core focus for Uncork. Last couple of months, we've launched a website. The website is purely carrying some of the content from social media, and eventually will engage in a more active blog. And hopefully that will become a way of storing some of the reviews in a way that's easier to search and find and explore, because obviously Instagram doesn't really allow some of that functionality.
Yeah, the search
too easily.
functionality is not there, right? But
Yeah.
what I'm interested in is, are you expanding into IGTV, into Instagram TV as a medium, making maybe longer type videos and putting that onto that part of the platform or not?
So I've done one or two. The purpose, I suppose, Uncork has always been a pretty faceless portfolio or profile, and intentionally so. I suppose people would much rather look at a glass of wine than my mug, which I totally get. It's never really been about me, and I never intended to be. So where there's a really exciting way to express what's going on in the world of wine or with a winemaker, I certainly explore there. What I have done is a few fantastic pour shots. I've got some exceptional, really exquisite decanters, and they do so well in slow mo pours. And once in a while, I do that to share. And those are loads of fun. It's always a bit challenging trying to get somebody to hold the camera steady, and I'm trying to, obviously I'm really amateur in the way that it's set up. So I do the best we can, and my kids are starting to get involved and kind of telling me, Dad, don't forget to take a photograph of this drink. You mustn't forget it. So yeah, it's a bit of a family affair at the moment.
Well, if you can have fun, right? Why not? So what I want to know from you is, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but what's your favorite wine and wine region?
Yeah, this is a really tricky one. I suppose anybody would answer this in the same way. It's like choosing your favorite child. It's almost impossible to do. But what I can talk about is things that are really impressing me at the moment. And one of which is not so much a fad. It must have been about 2.5 years ago. I tasted Eric Ubermair's wines for the first time. Really fortunate to have met up with her partner and have a conversation, and tasted her 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon. It is still, without a doubt, one of my favorite SA wines that I've put to my lips. Really an impressive wine, and across their entire range, there are a few others that really stick their heads up. As a varietal point of view, I think Cinsault is really interesting at the moment. Lots of cool developments there, although probably a bit more faddish. I don't know if it's going to be as sustainable as other, but yeah, tricky to pick a region. It really depends on a combination of things. I really am all about relationships and the producer and the story and the way in which they treat wine, which is probably what has really taken me back with Erica's wine. But because it's on my doorstep, Stellenbosch really does have a very close place to my heart. It's the style of wine that I enjoy. It's really focused on big and bold profiles. That I and most of the wineries that I tend to stock up on happen to be in this area. And in the short term, I've found a lot of interest coming up in the Elgin region. It's obviously picking up and always it seems to be on the up and up. Cool wine is just something that I just find the sophistication around it fantastic. And yeah, there are a couple of wineries up there that I'm starting to explore a bit more, get a bit more time with as well.
So the whole tourism area in that area is developing a lot. You know, you have almost like an agri-tourism hub there that's starting to develop with your wine and also other stuff happening.
Yeah, I think the diversity that we offer in the Cape is just exceptional. You know, previously it may have been a really finite approach to a few smaller wine regions you're going to. There's absolutely no doubt, and I'm hearing more and more, and again, not really my view, but people who I interact with really often saying, you know, when they come to the Cape, they don't even visit this side of the mountain. They go up over the hill into the Elgin region, Hemel and Arder, and go and explore there. That is just their thing. The wines that are there are exceptional for them. They have great relationships with wineries. And I'm finding there's diversity, and look at that in comparison to, you know, Swartland. Head out to Riva Castile and see what's being done out that side. We just have just the most remarkable wineries and regions to explore, and I don't think anybody has enough time to get to them all. What a privilege to be able to explore them, you know, even if it's just through a glass.
You know what? Lots of people don't understand what we have here in South Africa. I mean, to understand that, you really need to go explore some of the wine regions in the rest of the world, and then you realize that what we have here in terms of, you know, the total offering, in terms of how you are greeted on in the whole winelands, how you are, you know, how it's presented, the tourism and everything that goes with it is really unique in the world.
Yeah, and that's you know, such a big part of Uncork, and I said earlier that, you know, the purpose of this has never really been to make money. This is not it's not a personal story to tell. You know, the core behind Uncork is really about telling a story of craftsmanship through the lens of producing, you know, great wines and spirits in our country. It's all about talking about people who are doing exceptional things or making exceptional things, and you know, my only hope is that it inspires somebody to get in a plane and fly here, or get in a car and get out and go and see a winery and taste something unique. Just try something different. Obviously, when it's again possible. I hope that in some way if there's one or two people that are inspired to do that, it feels like it could be a win for Uncork and hopefully for the wine industry.
Do you ever get the wanderlust to actually also maybe do the opposite? You yourself getting on a plane and flying to other wine regions of the world and writing about them a bit, or is this not really something you're interested in?
Absolutely, and I've been really fortunate to have sample wines sent from a few other countries. Some really interesting stuff, and some not always so great. Looking just for a favourable review, I'd say. I had the privilege last year to travel through to Bordeaux and spend a bit of time over a couple of days exploring. It also is never really enough to explore the entire region. And coupled with that, I actually spent a week or so in Scotland wandering through through some of the whiskey distilleries as well. So yeah, and there's no doubt those are absolutely wonderful trips. I think they tend to be once in a lifetime trips, particularly with family. When we go on holiday, we head east to Indonesia and find ourselves on a beach really quietly sipping back on something a little less sophisticated.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things is very obviously, you know, Uncork is almost, you know, becoming like a influencer in the wine industry. So I would think that sometimes it's to a winery's advantage if you can write something about them or review them or whatever. So if somebody's listening from a wine estate and they want to get your attention, how did they get you to actually drive a bit further than Stellenbosch maybe, or maybe go to a place you haven't been to and get your attention to come to, you know, taste the wines and write something about it?
I think the first thing, I almost cringe at the
You don't have to bribe
word
right?
influencer. I know exactly why it exists and how it's worked. The starting point is, I hope that wineries see it as a channel. This is just another space that you can use to market your brand. And you know, please, I have great friends who are involved in social media, and you know, they work this as a career. I hope they see this as a valuable channel that doesn't have cost attached to it in real terms. You know, pick up the phone. My number's on most of the social media channels. There's an email address online, drinks@uncork.co.za, being an email address, or through any of DM me on Instagram is probably the easiest way to get it really. send a message, start a conversation. What I can tell you, what you're not going to get sent back to you is a rate card and a generic response that says how to get. This is supposed to be a way for hopefully allowing me to explore more of the winelands, and hopefully for yourself a way of getting your products exposed to more people. There obviously is one or two caveats to it. I don't charge anything for exposure around Cork, and I never intend to do it. What it does mean is that I'm grateful to receive samples. The generosity of the industry is really vast. The samples always come at risk, and I said really clearly, I focus on the good. If I taste something and it's not to my liking, you'll find very few ratings on the page are in the low 80s and nothing below. And it's purpose driven, that I understand every product's got a profile and every profile has got a product. If it doesn't suit me, it doesn't do anything for a supplier to slate it. I'll talk generously about the things that I really enjoy. And I think people who follow and Cork, who align to my profile, hopefully will pick it up and enjoy it as well. But yeah, and I suppose the quick answer is pick up the phone, start a conversation. I love chatting to people who are, you're just interested in knowing what's going on. Never mind, the exposure you get, great. I don't do contracts. I don't do agreements. I do a phone call, a chat, a conversation, and that's, that is really what it is. It's who I am as a person, and it's how it's translated into Uncork as well.
I think, I've had quite a few people, quite a few big wine estates have conference facilities in that, and what they do, and I think this is where wineries can, and they would go to professional conference organizers and maybe invite them to come to and visit on a quiet weekend and experience what they can provide, right? And I think this is what I would think that the winery should do is actually invite somebody like you for a lunch or a pairing or something at their own cost, and let you enjoy it, and then write your review from that perspective as a invited customer type of thing.
Yeah. So in many of the cases, that's how it does translate with Uncork. So the ability to get out to a winery, I don't necessarily always plan very well in advance, well, as you would have seen, being at the mercy of all these children and a really busy work life. I'm able to kind of plan weeks or months in advance. But that being said, we've had some really good experiences. I remember in a trip to Franschhoek where we were really blown away, and thankfully as a family, I think this journey is a personal one, but the impact is felt on a family who, I'm conscious of what it does to them if I'm running about tasting wonderful wines all over and they don't get to be a part of it. So I ask for anybody who's interested, be considerate of what the lifestyle it creates on the side, not just of myself, but anybody you're reaching out to. I suppose that is why some others may ask for financial support, because it kind of replicates, it's part and parcel of what they do for a living. The ask is reach out, let's chat, and I'm fairly open and honest about what I can and can't do. Where it's possible to involve family, and in some cases there's some wineries that it just is not, and that's also okay. And the last part, the other part, which is really really exciting, is that about 4 months ago we opened up a donation site on PayPal, which is really, it's not so much directed at producers, it's a combination of producers and followers, and it's called Buy Uncork a Drink. It's a really small entity. It's like a $5. Anybody who's interested, kind of small. And strange enough, that is just ticked over in a very small way. Some of the producers are grateful afterwards for exposure and drop $15 or a $10 in and say thanks very much. This is for you to go and buy something, which I appreciate. It actually, if nothing else, maintains a bit of interest, and it also gives me an excuse to stock up the cellar with more wine, I suppose.
So talking about that, I'm interested in how this influencer industry develops. When I started hearing about Instagram influencers in the beginning, I was always thinking of girls in bikinis selling fashion accessories and makeup, right? But with this type of thing, you can't just rely on images and stuff like that. Surely you have to provide some value. So if you had to give somebody that wanted to become an influencer some advice, what would you say what does it take to become a successful influencer in the wine industry?
Cool. So I think the starting thing is just pick anything that you're passionate about. So be it wine or natural wine or a specific region, or focus on South African wine, focus on a style of wine or what you're trying to track. The starting point is, if you're not passionate about wine, don't start here at all. And it seems maybe like a bit of a negative statement, but it's really difficult to. There are loads of people who come in and try and leave, and often the case is that you have to be so passionate about it that you almost can't stop. So there's maybe the first thing is, if you pick the thing you're passionate about. If that is wine, fantastic. What a pleasure to have a new influencer on board. The second thing is try to understand what your purpose is. So once you know that wine is definitely your passion, what is the purpose of what you're trying to do? Are you trying to bring new people, young people into drinking wine? Are you trying to demystify some of the complexities that are created around wine, get people to try new or different varietals or strange regions? I think understanding some of this may also just help to make sure that your market is really finite, but also that your content is then aligned to what they're doing as well. And to be honest, it's something that I've learned in the Uncorked journey, is that for a long time I wasn't really too sure how some of these spirits and wines all really tied together. So I didn't start with a really big plan, which is probably my last piece of advice. Don't plan to start and then just you kind of plan yourself to death and actually never get your first piece of content going. Just start and let your community evolve where you're going to and how that direction changes. It felt that in the beginning it was kind of anything I could get my hands on to taste, I would taste and talk about, and then it evolved into let's start being more finite about things that display craftsmanship. So what is the criteria that I'd use for craftsmanship? Is that it's something that a producer stands wholeheartedly behind, saying, I'm proud of producing this. And to be honest, some products are produced in the way to say, I'm not, this is just I'm producing this in order to scale that I can make something else. And others are, standing so proudly behind their product. And that's obviously what I've started chasing after for Uncork, is really just honing in on the craftsmanship elements of it, and highlighting some of the characters behind the product. So, yeah, and I think if you're passionate about the industry and you understand what kind of role you're trying to fulfill, and then you allow your audience to direct you where you're going, as opposed to standing back and trying to pre-plan everything up front. I've learned social media by learning by doing. My personal profile, I think, was created 6 weeks before Uncork. So I had no expertise in this space at all. I think I fell into an interesting space. I learned by doing. I made a heap of mistakes. I still make mistakes. I have friends all over the world who once in a while drop me a note and say, don't forget, you spelt this wrong, go and change your copy. And I just leave it, because that is kind of authentically who I am. There are a few mistakes here, and I'm no expert in wine.
It's a perfect way to get some traffic, right? Make a spelling mistake.
Yeah, what a pleasure. All I need to do is get the numbers wrong, and then I'll be on YouTube and News24. It's strange enough. It's because I believe that I'm actually just a person who loves wine. I don't have any of the funny acronyms that follow my name. I'm really impressed by people who've dedicated their life to studying in wine. My experiences in the number of bottles I've tasted, the people I've met, and the feeling I have when I consume a product. I have some structure behind how I taste and rate products.